Welcome back. So we're going to learn about mesh views. So it'd be nice to have a sample mesh view, especially because at some point we're going to be dragging and dropping code into Xcode and we want that code to compile. So I'm going to create a new folder and let's actually create it in the views. So in the view, Command Option N, and I'm going to call this sample mesh views, and we can create a SwiftUI view, and I'm going to call this wind view. Okay, this will be just one example, and I prepared this code beforehand, and actually, to be honest, I didn't prepare this code. I created the app, and with the app, I generated the code that I'm essentially entering now. So part of it, of course, I'll copy and paste. So now width 4, height 4. Now in the wind view, in the preview, I'm going to ignore safe area. And we're going to have a bunch of points, which will create a 4x4 matrix. Okay, and you can find this code in the resources folder because copying and pasting is not so fun. And we're going to have a bunch of colors. And there's an also optional value for a background, and this is set to clear. Currently, the mesh covers everything, so if we set it to a different color like red, there won't be a noticeable difference. Okay? Okay, great. So that's an example of a mesh gradient. Now I want us to create the code view. Okay? The code view will take a color array, points, a background color, etc., some Boolean value, a name, rows and columns, and we'll generate this code. So we're going to motivate what we do based on this example. Okay, and this can be a little bit challenging, but we'll deal with it, and it's actually quite amazing at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to create another folder called code view, and within that folder, let's create a file called code view. I want a dedicated folder, even though we'll probably only have one file in this folder, simply because it's just so different, so different from our other examples. Now I will go back to the wind view because I do want to get motivation from here, and I'm literally going to copy everything. Okay, everything. Copy it, go into the code view, and create this multi-line comment, and we're going to create import SwiftUI struct. Then we're going to use string interpolation for the name, add view, etc. String interpolation for the width and height. Then our points have to be formatted nicely. Okay, using, say, a two-dimensional array, for example. Colors. Now, okay, we do have some work, but I'm just discussing the general idea, and I want us to display preview. Okay? Now we'll also have a Boolean value that tells us whether we want this whole import SwiftUI struct, etc., or we want a simpler view, just the mesh gradient, right? Maybe we just want to create the mesh gradient. So we'll have that option. So one of the first things we want to do is know how to create this. Okay, great. So that's our initial discussion. Oh, and I pasted it into the wrong file, into mesh model. Excuse me. I wanted to paste it into code view. Yeah, into code view. Because this is kind of a reference for what we're trying to achieve. Okay? Great. So now let's consider the parameters. So I want a color array, or an array of colors, and they are going to be strings. We're going to primarily be working with strings as much as possible, and at very specific points we'll be converting strings to colors. My main issue initially was that in certain situations, strings were converted into hex codes, and I don't want to display hex codes in the code view. So then I realized a better approach was just to work with strings the whole time, and then maybe use a dictionary between these strings and colors when I want to convert to colors. Of course, this limits the number of colors we can have, but still we still create something quite nice. Okay, so extended code will be a Boolean value that tells us whether, we just want the mesh gradient or we want the whole import SwiftUI struct, preview, etc. Okay? Next, we're going to have a name. So name of type string. And we're going to have rows. So rows of type int, and columns, the number of columns also of type int. Okay, great. So that's our general setup. And I also want to define our view name. Okay, so we do have quite a lot of things to do. We have quite a lot of things to do here. Now we're missing arguments, so let's take care of that. Let's press Control M. And we would like some sample code. And we have some sample code here, right? So we would like to reproduce these values. Okay, so this is going to be wind, not wind view. I'm going to add the view in the code. Extended set to true. Background color, if I remember correctly, was clear. But actually, I don't want, cannot find win in scope because it needs to be a string. Now we set background color to be an actual color and the color array to be strings. I actually don't like this. I think I'll just do everything with strings. So let's change the background color to string. Anyways, we'll be working with a dictionary to do these conversions. So in that case, we'll have clear, not dot clear. We'll be adding the dot. And we have an array of points. Okay, so an array of points, that's these points over here. So these are literal points, and an array of strings, of colors. Now this is not going to do the job, right? These values are not going to do the job. So I have to go ahead and delete all of these periods and add brackets. So in order not to bore you, I will speed things up. Okay, wonderful. Now we are going to have a variable called code. That's going to be the most important variable here, a computed property actually. So let's call this to do code. Okay. So that will be, we'll have text with code, and I am going to embed this within a scroll view. And let's just make this a little nicer. So I'm going to add some padding. Let's see, the font is .title. We are going to add some drag functionality. So let's say, let's just add to do, add, drag, and drop. It's actually quite simple, but we don't want to do too many things at one time. Padding, background, say color.white, and I want a clip shape of a rounded rectangle. So .rect with a corner radius of 15. Okay, wonderful. So let's move the to-do up over here. And now let's say frame min height of 600. and frame max width, max height. So max width of infinity, and max height for now I'll leave empty. Let's see if that improves. We can add some padding over here. Okay, so let's take a quick break. So have an amazing day and see you next time.